Hello guys, this is the Sicilian Paramour. Today we're going to be talking about dragons, more specifically hyper-accelerated dragons. Okay, the topic of the discussion would be the variation for Queen a5 check in the hyper-accelerated dragon. What am I talking about? After e4, c5, knight f3, g6 announces the hyper-accelerated dragon. Black does not want to prepare it with knight c6 or doesn't want to go into the regular dragon with d6. Here he just gets on with it. After d4, the most common reply is c takes d4. However, bishop g7 is the variation we're interested in. Now, black doesn't lose the pawn in c5 because after d takes c5, here comes the queen check. And no matter how white blocks, the pawn on c5 will be lost next. Alright, so how do we block? The most common line is c3. And the reason for that is after knight c3, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, queen takes c3, bishop d2 and queen takes c5. Black wins 2 pawns, if I'm counting right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we win 2 pawns, but white has a huge lead in development, and he will be able to put on a lot of unpleasant threats. A sample line can run like bishop d3, knight f6, castle, castle, e5, knight g4, and bishop e4. This line is pretty much untested to the best of my knowledge in tournament practice. So I hope that you will be able to independently analyze this line and probably get something out of it. In any case, the variation we're interested in is after c3. Queen takes c5, the obvious move, bishop e3. Now, according to the database and also common sense, the most common move would be here, queen c7. I mean, in most Sicilian positions like the Paulson, Can, or the Taimano, the queen goes here to a natural square. However, now there is a move, knight a3. Alright, so what does this move accomplish? Now, what white wants to do is it just wants to jump with the knight to the c4 square and trying to get on from there. This maneuver, and white has not maneuvered the knight from d2 to c4 but from a3 to c4. However, this allows a little tactic. If you want, you can pause the video and try to find the tactic on your own. It's pretty elementary, so it won't take you that much time. Alright, I hope you found the tactic. It's pretty simple. Bishop takes c3. After b takes c3, queen takes c3, check. Now we have a check on the king and the undefended knight on a3. So no matter how white blocks, the queen is going to pick up the knight and black is going to be 2 pawns up. So should we fret? Not one bit. So we're going to defend the knight in either way, either knight d2 or bishop d2, but what I recommend is knight d2. But that's also what the computer would recommend. However, there is a game between the ex-FIDE world champion Rustam Kasanzanov and Van den Berg, played in 2003 in Netherlands, which went bishop d2. Rustam elected to opt for this bishop move. After queen a3, bishop c4, knight c6, and we have now rook c1, knight f6, e5, knight e4, and then the good move, castle, knight d2, queen takes d2, h6. And white already has some pretty unpleasant threats in this position. He goes now queen f4, and now a fatal mistake by black, knight d8. And now Rustam went on to completely crush black with the move e6. It's a fantastic move, and I really advise you to go and check out the game. It's pretty instructive. However, what we're interested in is after queen c3 check, we block with the knight. Alright, the queen has to take the knight, otherwise why did it do this tactic? And now black is just 2 pawns up. It has majority on the queen side and the king side, if you want to call it that. And however, we go rook c1. Now all we threaten is to, take the bishop on c8 with checkmate. So the most obvious way to defend this would be knight c6. However, after knight c4, here comes the first hurdle for black. Black only has one good move here, which is queen to b4 check, because queen a6 just loses to, you guessed it, yeah, knight d6 check, a check, and the bishop picks up the queen. Also, queen takes a2 leads to problems after rook a1, and the queen is just lost. Don't even think about capturing the rook and the queen to get sufficient compensation. You just don't have it. So after knight c4, the best variation is queen b4 check. And after bishop d2, again, the queen has one legal, no, I shouldn't call this legal, has many ways to go, but is going to lose itself in many of the variations. So the only safe move is queen c5. And after here, the move bishop c3, which attacks the rook. However, if you find yourself in this variation and you want to force the draw of some kind, you can try bishop e3. And now the queen has to go back to b4, and now you can repeat the sequence to get a draw. But if your opponent doesn't want that, and after bishop e3 goes queen h5, the only other safe square, you can get a huge initiative by bishop e2, queen h4, the only move, and castle. Now there are many variations here, which is h5 or even queen takes e4 and bishop f3. And you can already see that white has a pretty unpleasant initiative here. So, but of course, before trying out this line, you must computer check it and make sure you know all the themes and ideas. But this is not the topic of discussion yet again, because after queen c5, we're going to go bishop c3, attacking the rook. And however, it seems the rook cannot be protected in the simplest way, that is knight f6, because after bishop takes f6, e takes f6, and knight d6 check, we pick up the queen yet again. Alright, so the only way to protect this rook is by the move f6. And now we are starting to pile up even more pressure after the move knight e3. Now the bishop discovers, is going to discover many nasty threats, because the rook and the queen are lined up on the same file. So the most common move is, not common because you have not seen this variation in practice, but the most obvious move would be queen b6. However, there's another alternative in queen a3. Let's check that out first. On queen a3, we have knight to d5, threatening a fork on c7. Rook b8 seems the most logical try if you don't want to give up castling rights. And then bishop c4. And, we were piling up pressure. Over here, the move b5, I believe, would seem really tempting. But after bishop takes, rook takes, at the end of the road, there's a fork. And it picks up the rook. So we cannot go down that path. So how about e6? E6 after here. And white can just casually play castle. I mean, the only explanation for this move would be, it opens the e file. After takes, it opens the e file and also attacks the knight. So can you plug holes in this position? No, you can't. After d6, the knight is attacked again. Knight c6 again would make no sense because after rook e1 check, king d8, bishop takes g8, rook takes g8, bishop f6 check, knight e7, rook e7. Yeah, nobody would want to have this position as black. So moving on, we go back and we can see that queen a3 is not such a hot variation. So how about queen b6? Well, after here we have bishop c4, and we're gonna, again, just slowly, methodically developing. And just remember that white is 2 pawns down and is just developing as if it's no big deal here. And believe it or not, the best move is knight h6. Well, to understand this, we must look at the other moves. So the bishop is on a pretty active diagonal. So how about e6? Now e6 looks good, but white just castles, nothing else. And black is having some problems castling king side. Of course, castling queen side is not an option here. So in order to castle king side, he must first protect the pawn on f6 because he has to move the knight away. And as soon as he moves the knight, the pawn on f6 falls because of the bishop. So queen d8. Don't whistle at me. So queen d8 is a good move because it protects the pawn and allows the knight to go to h6 so that white can castle. So black can castle, sorry. But this variation doesn't work, or at least causes a lot of problems because of the move f4. Knight h6 following up with the plan will fail to queen e1. This is a very standard plan. You can see this in other variations like the Grand Prix attack in the Sicilian, or in reverse colors you can see this plan in the Dutch. So we see queen e1. The plan is very simple. So if black just goes ahead and castles, we can have a lot of problems here, like queen h4, attacking this pawn again. It's protected, but you're going to have a lot of h-file pressure here. So king g7, you're going to have rook f3, just going to pile up here. One defensive try that black can try is rook h8, and after rook to h3, knight g8. It seems that everything is being covered. The knight, the queen, the king, all of them protect the vulnerable pawn on f6, but it just falls down. It's just a sandcastle. f5 tries to break through. Now, taking with the g-pawn is unpalatable, so how about e takes f5? It goes the wrong way because after bishop takes knight, king takes, and bishop takes f6, we're gonna have problems. And even after the move, e5 in this position, f takes g3 just calls in all the shots. However, there's a variation with d5. Now the bishop hits the rook and the pawn now hits the bishop. So has white gone wrong here? No. Should he protect the rook or the bishop? Neither. Not a care in the world. G takes h7. Now the best line goes bishop takes h3 and queen g3 check. Now the important pawn on h6 is lost. h7, sorry, is lost. But this is nothing to fret about because after e takes d5, we're not even taking the bishop. The bishop can run away if it wants to. But the best play goes knight h6, bishop d3 check. The diagonal has been opened towards the king, and after f5, which is forced because any other minor piece intrusion would just lead to the loss of a minor piece, f5, queen takes h3, e4, knight takes f5. Now, just taking the bishop makes no sense here because of, yes, that's right, queen takes h6. Hence, after e4, knight takes f5, queen g5, black still is in a pretty bad state after rook to f1. Alright, so let's go back. Alright. So after all, we're seeing a lot of problems here. So how about black does not play e6, it plays knight e5. Now this is an interesting variation. Of course, what I'm suggesting or presenting here is not a repertoire of any kind. I'm just showing you the ideas and how fun it is to sometimes play two pawns down in a hyperactive position. Ironically, against the hyper-exhilarated dragon. So yeah, after knight to e5, we have this move, knight d5. Attacks the queen, also threatens a fork, so the queen has to stay on guard for the c7 square. The most obvious move would seem queen d8, but now this allows a very fine tactic. Bishop takes e5, the obvious move, otherwise you just lose a knight. F takes e5, and now knight c7 anyway, because after queen takes, we have bishop f7 check, picking up the queen. Or if the king has, black has had enough and the king wants to move, we have queen d5, just threatening checkmate on f7. e6 doesn't save the day because of knight e6 check. I mean, tactics overflowing everywhere. If the pawn takes, the queen is lost, and if the king moves, the queen is still lost. However, the move h6, knight h6, still makes no difference because of knight e6 check yet again, and you lose the queen. Alright, so knight e5 in this variation does not work. e5 also does not work. So what does? Excuse me? Yes. Knight h6. It doesn't work, but it is the most, brute force combination. After castles, knight f7, we're having problems yet again with knight d5. Queen d8, the only good move. Now f4. Finally, black gets to castle. So has white's hyper-accelerated attack, so to speak, was all in vain because you don't have any specific target. Black's position looks somewhat under pressure, but of course completely handleable. Or is this just a mirage? Well, turns out it is. Queen e1. Again, the same idea of bringing the queen to the h-file. You must remember this idea in a lot of problems. However, as I was analyzing and preparing for this video, I realized one common mistake or one common problem in all of these variations. It was the absence of a dark squared bishop. And this weakness is created all around it because of this bishop. All these weaknesses on the dark squares. This, as one author, I forgot his name, he likes to call it Swiss cheese. Yes, this pattern of dark square weaknesses was is just pronounced, and this is the reason why all the tactics are working in white's favor. And just one misstep from black can lead to his doom. So after the move queen e1, d6 seems like the most logical try because the bishop on c8 is the only piece which is not doing anything. So white follows up with this plan, queen h4. Now there's a lot of pressure here. So king g7, wanting to go rook h8 next would seem like a good move. Now comes g4. Well, not yet, but soon enough. Rook h8 and now g4. Now the king move to h1. The engines will say you a lot of different things, but the king move to h1 is just a preparation so that the rook can join into the attack with rook g1, and that the move g5 will have much more venom to it later. Don't whistle at me. Okay. So after g4, the best move is h6 because we just have to prevent the move g5. Queen g3, the star move. And I would like to end the analysis not abruptly, but here, because I believe that white's kingside counterplay is more than sufficient for the two pawns. And the best variation here would be, well, check it out yourself. I'm just going to show you one slight misstep. Now, say black plays bishop d7 here. It's not that bad of a move. But after g5 it gets thoroughly punished. We have three attackers on f6, and you can see the unfortunate placement of black's queen, the king, and the rook in the corner. It's all pretty much problematic here. So after h takes g5, f takes g5. Now we have four attackers on f6, and that point is gonna fall no matter what. So after knight takes g5. A sweet little tactic would be queen takes g5, exploiting the pin, but it doesn't work because after knight e5, believe it or not, all of white's play has actually gone in vain. It's slight advantage to white, but nothing more. I mean, in such an attack, you would expect to have something more than this. So no, don't be too greedy or in a hurry to capture material. Queen g5, not that good of a move, not that hot. What is hot though is rook takes f6, and this is really a star move. Now rook is threatening all sorts of things like discovered attack, discovered checks by the bishop and all that, and even now the knight is hanging. So the move e takes f6 is very natural, but how natural can you be when you just lose a queen? Bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, knight f6, king f6. and queen takes d6. This attacks the bishop and the king. Now black might think he saves it by bishop e6 because the knight protects, but after bishop e6, knight e6, rook f1, king is forced to give away the protection of the knight. King g7, queen picks up the knight, and this is a winning position for white, and I don't think people will be having a lot of problems in converting this. So the road is over, and I hope you, of course, learned something from it. And as always, thanks for watching.